Welcome, 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 everybody. Thank you so very much for joining us here today. Once again, I am so excited to bring my special guest to you today, Lori E. Kirstein. Lori is going to be talking to us about spiritual transformation and empowered leadership, how to be what you seek. And I absolutely love that. So, Lori, would you please let us know a little bit about yourself first?
Oh my goodness, there's so much because I am way over 25, but I will boil it down to this. I spent many, many years looking into spirituality and questioning it
Mhm.
because all of the isms just didn't work for me. And I tried them and they just left me flat. And I've been just a major seeker of the truth that I can live instead of just think. And so I became an actor because that is the experiential thing that allows me to know that I'm more than I think I am. And that's how I help other people. And so I do different kinds of women's leadership coaching, and I'm a writer, and I have a podcast, and I'm just out there in the world trying to help as we move from 3D to 5D, as we move into this amazingly challenging and energetically insane time.
Yes, energetically insane indeed. So, thank you for getting out there, shining your light, and really helping to elevate the frequency when there seems to be so much division and a lot of forces out there trying to bring that frequency and vibration down. Thank you for shining your light and raising it up. I appreciate that. And I love what you said about you were seeking for a truth that you can live, not simply think. And I think we're all looking for that. So thank you for sharing that perspective with us. Now, you said that you have done a lot of seeking and experiencing and exploring this idea of spirituality. Tell us what is the number one misconception that you believe most people have about this concept of spirituality?
Oh, I love this question because it really goes to the heart of what is needed now and what's been a misconception throughout the ages. I mean, deliberately so, it turns out. The feminine has been ushered out of the door every time. Don't be so emotional. Don't be so intuitive. Don't, what are you getting that from? Inspiration, as if it were somehow not useful. So spirituality is seen sort of like a something you play with. Ditto for religion. Like, okay, I'll go and I'll go to my church or my synagogue or my mosque and I'll do my thing, but then the rest of it's not connected.
Yeah.
And so this idea that somehow it is not useful, is not practical, I think is the hugest misconception of all.
I love that. Yes. Thank you for sharing that. Absolutely. I agree. And this goes back to what you had said earlier, right? The truth that you can live instead of just knowing and believing and feeling it. And so I do see how spirituality can have a practical aspect to it. Would you mind if I ask, what are some of the ways that spirituality shows up in a very practical way for you personally?
It took a very long time. I'll tell you my breakthrough story, really,
Please.
because I had clinical depression and anxiety for almost 40 years. And I still managed to have kind of a life, but I can't say that I was the master of it because I always had this black cloud that I could feel all the time. And it was always ready to pull me in and hold me down for months at a time. And it was just such a limiting
Mhm.
situation. And I was doing, all that you can do, all that they tell you that you can do, right? The medicine, the therapy, the group therapy. But honestly, even though I was growing in some ways, I was never free of it. And I just figured there was no way free of it. And I was looking into spirituality. I had met the great hugging saint, Amachi, in 1988. And so she became my spiritual mother. But the question was, why is she not helping? Like if this is the highest being, how can I still be depressed? And I was listening to Abraham Hicks, and I was listening to all different kinds of things, watching and reading and investigating. And then about 3 years ago, I went into a nervous breakdown,
Wow.
and it was not my first either. And it was scary. And I went off to the emergency room and I said, I'm in a bad space. They said, do you want us to lock you up? I said, no, I do not. Can you help me? And they said, let's adjust your meds. I said, okay, let's do that. So they did that. And then I went back home. And in the middle of the night, I found myself bottoming out. I just was dropping like a stone. And since I could no longer go to the ER, there was no rescue anymore. And I am the person who can find, oh, I can persevere more than any 10 people and I can find answers if I need them, and I always want them. And I just said to the divine, I got nothing. And I really, for the first time in my life, or maybe the second, I meant it. I didn't have anything. Now, Abraham Hicks was playing on YouTube. And I thought, well, I love Abraham's rampages, the
Mhm.
rampages of appreciation, the rampages of self-love and all that. But they never teach you how to do it yourself. They don't teach that as far as I know. But I'd been noticing some things and I thought, I've got nothing else, I'll try it. And I took out a journal and I started writing and I tuned into how I was feeling, which wasn't hard to do because it was pretty strong. And I started following this idea of allowing just pinprick of light, just a pinprick of something so small to support myself, to give myself, not to go from, oh God, I'm depressed and in danger, to I'm happy, but to go from I'm in danger to here's something positive I can say to myself that is true, that I can't argue with. And so I said, I think I'm really a badass for even continuing to try, because a lot of people would have given up by now. And then I felt what that felt like, to give myself that positive feedback. And it was like, huh, I feel a little bit of room inside of me, like just a little bit, but it's so starkly different from the blackness that I'm in. And then I heard Abraham say, when you do come up with a better feeling thought, focus on it, massage it, really get into it. So I, I said, okay. And I went, it feels like there's more room in my chest, and it feels like I've got oxygen in my body. And that's really interesting because I didn't think I could feel anything but that.
Yeah.
And I went on for about 10 minutes and I realized I had shifted out of I'm in danger of dying to I feel like absolute crap. But I was no longer in
Yeah.
danger.
Right?
Yes. And I had done that. I had done what? I'd spent so many years like looking for the external answer, not having the internal one. And so over the following years, I've used this way of what I call the 1% solution, because it's teeny tiny little steps. It's teeny tiny little up levelings that they're so little, you cannot argue. You can't go, but I don't have $1 million. I'm living under a bridge. You know, Instead, you're saying, I'm so proud of myself for at least continuing to breathe. I mean, it can be that small.
Right, right,
And it
right.
builds, the energy builds and builds. And so now I know how to shift any emotion and it doesn't take but a few minutes. And that's extraordinary. That has given me the understanding of what spirit isn't and what it really is, and who I am and who
Thank
we
you.
are.
Absolutely. That is a phenomenally inspiring story. And when you found that anchor for you, that first 1%, that first step that you took, that thought of like, I am a badass, to keep going. I'm still here. I'm alive. I'm kicking. That is freaking badass, right? I felt that. I felt chills in my
Ooh,
body when you said that.
so
And
cool.
I know, right? It's so good. It's so good. And I think that this idea of the 1% is really powerful because how many of us have tried to do the affirmations? Those ones where it's like, picture yourself in the future. You have everything that you want. You are a multimillionaire. You are serving your dharma. You are doing all the things and you have all the things. And then get in that emotion and say it out loud, and you say it and that inner voice is like, yeah, right. Right.
Right. No, this
Right.
is true. Yeah.
And so you're teaching us that, yeah, you don't have to make that leap. You can start with that next level, just that 1% that feels better than where you are right now. That's
Yeah.
incredibly powerful.
And it's incredibly feminine. Okay. And this is what needs to come in. And we are so starving for our own feminine
Yes.
that I think when we open the door for each other, we are all ears and we're all open heart and we're like, oh, okay. We have taken on the masculine rules and made them ours, and it's just awful. We know how to beat up on ourselves. We know how to hold ourselves to impossible standards. I mean, I think I have 12 PhDs in self-abuse, as far as how I used to talk to myself. I don't talk to myself that way anymore.
Yeah.
That's extraordinary.
That's
Extraordinary.
amazing. Yes.
Yes. And that's the difference for me between change and transformation. I make a distinction there because I can lose weight, but I can gain it all back and I can lose it again. Like that's change. Transformation, especially in our emotional set points, which are our vibrational output. If you can transform where you're standing in relationship to your life, you can't go back and you don't want to because you've just up leveled. And that's what the 1% solution does. And that's what that way of thinking of let's just like, you don't want to get pregnant and have the baby tomorrow. Let's let ourselves be in gestation.
I love that. Absolutely love that. And I feel that that leads into our next question because you talk about the importance of this femininity and leaning into the feminine. I like to talk a lot about New Earth leadership, which is very different than the masculine, patriarchal, hierarchical leadership that we see now and that we've seen, frankly, in spirituality, right? With the guru on top and all the followers. And when I speak of New Earth leadership, I do speak about the feminine coming out and inviting others to have a seat at the table. Just like with the New Earth Ascension Summit, that's exactly what we're doing. We are leading in a very feminine way of inviting everybody to join us at the table.
Yeah.
So tell me about your perspective and how do you feel that spirituality and leadership coexist? What is your view of that?
We are really indoctrinated and we are really daily, we are reinforced in that. And that can, even if we're aware of it, that can make us feel very hopeless, but that's not necessary. Real spirituality is the ability to go to what I call next level empowerment,
Mhm.
where anything that doesn't serve you, you get to question it. You get to come in and say, you know what, that doesn't even begin to make sense. Why am I believing in this? And sure, you'll get a little pushback at first, but the more that you engage with this as kind of a Sherlock Holmesian pursuit, the more reward you get in becoming more of you. And that's who you are. You are so huge. We are all so big, so limitless. And we've got to get onto that path of opening the door, walking through, and then expanding, expanding, expanding. Now, why does that have to do anything to do with leadership? Is because if we want to shift from the indoctrination into real leadership of helping people find their true selves and help them get past their nonsense, right? Like you don't want to be the maternal feminine who just forgives everything. You need to also be the fierce feminine who says, I'm sorry, that's bull. I'm not. that's no, that's not worthy of you. And no, that's where we have to go. And in leading other people, we tend to fall back into the indoctrination. It's just what we know so well. And we don't know leadership as far as our own empowerment very well. So we have to step into who we are, but we have to do it practically so that we experience what it truly means, not just what we think it means, but how it actually feels to be visible, to hear your own voice inside your head going, you might be full of it while you're still standing there leading and teaching what your knowledge, because it's hard won knowledge. You lived a life to get this knowledge. You paid with your time, your energy, and you had to fight a lot of things internally to get to being open. So if you want to be a leader, you need your spirit to be fully available to you first.
So, what I'm taking away from this myself personally, because I take a look at my journey through religious deconstruction, where I was in that space of questioning, 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 and so much of it seemed to be so arbitrary.
Yep,
And
I
I
agree.
and intended to keep women pliant, soft,
Oh,
out of their power. And so my takeaway, what I'm hearing from you, is more of an invitation for women to let go of that. Not necessarily, you don't have to abandon your softness. That's not what I'm hearing from you. What
oh
I'm
no.
hearing from you is that there is a time and a place for softness, and there is a time and a place for fierceness. There is a time and a place for boundaries. There is a time and a place for you to step up, step into your leadership, and really own it and allow yourself to be powerful.
Yeah, and that takes practice. And I mean, I've been an actress for a long, long time. And I'm not Julia Roberts status. So if you go, have I seen you in something? Probably not. But I use that in when I'm coaching women leaders because we have to work with a piece of writing. It'll usually be something that they've written. And we have to get on our feet and we have to feel when the words, the phrases, the physical stance, whatever it is strengthening us and when it is weakening us. We have so much ability to say what we want to say in the ways we want to say it. But we have to start getting used to how it feels to be in our strength. It should feel very natural in a weird way. It should feel so normal because
Yeah,
it'll feel when it's done right, like it's like you're talking to your friends and you're telling them, this is what I learned today. And it's extraordinary. Oh my God, you won't believe this. It's the same, that's the same voice as you'll use when you're a leader because there's no apology in it. You now know what it's like to just be who you are. And it's awesome stuff.
absolutely, absolutely. And I do believe that women are intended to lead, that women, that somehow our systems have got it a little bit backwards here, that men are supposed to support and women are supposed to lead. And if we can come back to that natural way of doing things, then societies are going to be a lot better. Which brings me to the next question, which is, how can you help women, or what allows women to break with social programming? Social programming is so intense. We've had
Oh,
millennia of it.
right.
How do we break free from this?
Oh my God. There's so many answers to that. I do want to give everybody who's watching a YouTube documentary that I saw in 2010 when it came out, 45 minutes long. An extraordinary woman named Jean Kilbourne produced it. And it was the fourth of the four films of this she made. It's called Killing Us Softly 4. And it really, what it did for me was it lifted the veil on what I guess I felt was the inevitability and the idea that I couldn't fight City Hall, right? That this was the way it was, and the only way I could get past it was to fight it, that there was no third way. I either had to give in and be cute and compliant and all that stuff, or I had to be like a raving bitch and just be
Right.
obnoxious. And so I figured there was no third way. Well, and I also figured that all of that was my stuff, my issues.
Mm.
It turns out none of that stuff none of the stuff I thought were my issues are my issues. So here I'm sitting in therapy trying to work through whatever it is. And there were some things that were mine, but the majority of the things that I was struggling with, I was like, oh, when I saw the movie, I went, holy moly, we've literally been brainwashed.
Yeah.
We've literally, all of it, men and women, but the women get the worst of it because nothing in our society and the structure was ever created with us in mind. None of it. So we
Yeah.
have to create something completely new in which we take the divine masculine and leave the toxic masculine behind. How do we do that? We start to become investigators instead of self-punishers.
Mm.
Start, right? Start instead of holding yourself at this place of like, I'm good at this or I'm bad at this. Imagine that you're a kid, a little kid, and you're just trying to learn something that it's not only you who doesn't know how, every other woman you ever met doesn't know how. So the fact that you are going, okay, hold on. So what can I do when I'm going to be meeting with this person who really scares me? Not physical fear, but like not
Yeah.
somebody who's going to hurt you physically, but I'm going to meet with my boss and they scare me. How do I come out of that powerless feeling? What words can I use? What phrases can I do? What kind of conversation can I bring up in my head where I can feel in my body if it really is something that I would feel comfortable saying or not? And if it's not, let me find something that lets me feel a little bit stronger than I'm used to feeling. This is how we start to take those small steps.
I love that. And I think that you hit on a really key point there because you were saying, we have this false dichotomy of either we have to be soft and submissive and
Right.
compliant, or we need to fight. And that's a very masculine dichotomy, right? But what you said is the how can I feel comfortable in my body? I feel like maybe the answer to that is embodiment, to simply embody your power, embody your leadership. When you come to that meeting with your boss, come to it with an embodiment, an awareness of what's going on in your body. And then you don't have to fight, you don't have to cower, you simply stand in your power.
Well, I wish it were simple,
I know.
but right, you know, or I wish it were easy, but it is. Here's the thing that I will do if I'm about to do something that's really challenging is I will think about how do I want to be in that situation? How do I want to feel? And I don't hold myself to impossible standards of, I want to be king, queen of the world. I don't, that's not it. How do I want to feel? I want to feel like I'm in control of the situation, of myself in the situation, in not being rigid in control, but being comfortable knowing that I'm doing all that I can do. And then after I do it, I want to come away from it with a learner's mentality. What
Mhm.
went well? What didn't go well? And I want to reward myself for this. So I want to say, that was amazing. You are a badass. Look, you did it again. You tried something that a day ago you would have been like, no way, man, I ain't doing this. And here you just did it. This is the feminine. This is both the fierce feminine and the maternal feminine in one experience.
Yes, 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 exactly. Exactly. I love that. Thank you. What a wonderful conversation. I'm having such a good time. I also know that you have prepared kind of a mini experience for my audience today to kind of give them a little bit of a taste of what to expect in the New Earth Ascension Summit coming up here, May 5 through 9. You mentioned that you're an actress, so you draw from the worlds of acting, improv, and self-awareness for your activity. Would you
Mhm.
like to guide us through that experience now?
Well, I don't know that I can guide you through the one I had in mind. I can tell you how to do it. So let me think if there's one I can
Okay.
guide you through. I'm sorry. I let me just tell you what you can do.
Give us some homework. Absolutely. Give us some
This is
homework.
super fun. Super
Yeah.
fun.
Give us some
Okay.
homework and then I'll
Okay.
simply invite our audience to come back and share in the comments. How was this experience for you? So absolutely. And I'm going to take notes. Okay.
Okay. So what you want to do is you either want to write a paragraph or you want to grab a book or you want to go onto Google and find a monologue for someone. It can be someone your age and it should be whatever sex you identify with. We just don't want to go that far away from who we are.
Okay.
It can also be a book like this is just under my finger, so I'm going to use it. Saint Teresa of Avila. I'm like, I don't know. What? So you want to take about maybe 3 or 4 sentences, and they can be very serious or they can be very goofy. It doesn't really matter. Okay. Where you're going to focus as you read is you're going to focus on how you feel. Now, that's not just like, oh, I need to name emotions. That's not what I mean. Being aware of your musculature in your body, like, are you doing this? Or are you doing this? Or are you sort of like torqued? I will find that if I put on certain kind of clothing that doesn't work for me, I'll shoot a hip out and that shows me that I'm feeling disempowered. And I do it without thinking. It's not like it's just amazing. Okay. So you want to take those sentences and you want to say them in whatever way the writing indicates. So if it indicates that it's serious, read it seriously. If it's totally goofball, read it goofball. All right. And you want to really pay attention to how this makes you feel. Like, do you feel awkward? Do you want to look in the mirror and see what you're doing, or is that too much visibility all at once? Do it in the way that challenges you but doesn't make you freak out, because that's not the point.
Right.
All growth is 1%. All growth is one step at a time, not six. And as a recovering perfectionist and person who wants to do it all right this second, I'm telling you the power of 1% has got your back like nothing else. So I'm going to just read something here. What we're going to do is take it, whatever the mood is, and then we're going to read it again in a completely opposite mood. We're going to challenge ourselves to to be goofy or to be serious, whatever your opposite is, and to do it big. This is why you want to do this alone in your room. This is not for performance. This is not for you to see how well you can do this. That's not what this is for. This is so that you can expand in the privacy of your own room with your own thoughts and your own sensing and your own muscles and your body, all of it, and go, my God, I just did something I would never, ever have done. This is how acting and improv are so critical, because you get up there and you immediately break out of, this is the way I'm supposed to be. There is no way you're supposed to be. There just isn't one. So if as I read
Yeah.
this, as I write this, by the way, I can't help but wonder what's going on inside my own head. That's pretty cool.
Yes.
So I'm going to read that differently. So it kind of has a little bit of humor in it,
It does.
That's great. Those noises I told you about in the beginning are getting so loud that it's almost impossible for me to obey the order to write this.
Mm.
Interesting. Okay, so I've just read it like I would read anything. But if I want to be a complete goofball, and I love acting so desperately, as I write this, by the way, I can't help but wonder what's going on inside my own head. Now, you're not necessarily going to have that big of a palette at first to draw from, or you might, or you might. But when I do that, what feels like it's like oxygen is rushing through my body, but it's not just oxygen like I'm breathing. It gives me a sense of being larger inside. It's just the coolest sensation. Those
Mm.
noises I told you about in the beginning are getting so. You want to really work with letting yourself break the habitual appropriateness that you're used to. And I do recommend that you work with acting, improv, not to become an actor or or a stand-up comic or anything like that, but to free yourself. We are just enslaved. We're just enslaved. And that is actually more factual, going way, 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 way back in history. And I've been learning about this lately, and it's like, oh my God. So for us to be even confronting this idea that
Mhm.
we could break out of this really does speak to this being the time of the Great Awakening. It really does.
Thank you. I'm looking, I am I looking forward? I'm not sure if I'm looking forward to trying this. I was gonna
Okay,
just say, yeah, but here's
let
the
me,
thing. I am
yeah,
so grateful that you said this is not a performance because
no, it's not.
when you first gave us the assignment, and I feel like this is so important, especially for women, we're trying to figure out how to do it the right way.
Every time,
Yes.
every time. Well, that's not your issue.
Yeah.
That's not from anything that ever happened to you in your life other than the conditioning and the social shoulds.
Yes.
And we've had to adapt to this structure, this way of life in order to survive. And we've been handed the rules so young that we couldn't question them. And then we built our need for love around that. And then we built our need for, I want to have meaning in my life. And we get caught in so many places, so many places. So it's critical to have communities like yours where you can come together and talk about, okay, so I'm having this like hold back feeling, this lack of empowerment feeling. How can I look at this differently? How can I look at this in ways that will free my mind, will free my consciousness? And it's a powerful thing to do with other women.
Thank you for sharing that with us. And I am leaning into it with curiosity. I am, I can't say that it's excitement or enthusiasm because it has, I don't know, it feels like risk. It does feel dangerous and rebellious, right?
God, I love that you said that. That's brilliant. Because it is. We are confronting that false shell that
Yes.
we've come to think is who we are. And if anybody is afraid of speaking it, like of doing something at all different with your voice, you can try doing something different with your body. You know, you
Yes.
can suddenly, like, I love, you can't see me, but my arms are right out at my side. And I love this posture. My favorite thing is to stand on an empty stage in an empty theater and feel my energy going out and filling the theater, which
Mm.
is what it's like when you get really obsessed with being an actor and being on stage, because the flow of energy back and forth is just insane. It's so intimate and so beautiful, but you have to work up to it.
That
So
makes sense.
maybe a position, maybe a physical attitude that, like, if you tend to be like this in your emotional set points, you
Yes.
might want to try standing up straight. That could be enough, truly.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. This was so good, Lori. Thank you so very much for such a wonderful discussion, a deep, deep discussion into what it means to be a woman and empowerment and leadership. I appreciate it so much. For those of you who are watching, please drop some hearts and fire emojis. A big thank you to Lori for joining us. Lori, I appreciate you so much. I appreciate your wisdom and insight. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you so much to our audience. As a reminder, if you enjoyed this, Lori is going to be going deeper into this concept of the 1% in her presentation during the New Earth Ascension Summit, Embodied Leadership for the Galactic Age. And so we invite you, come and join us. Registration is free.
I am so honored to be on your summit. I'm very grateful to be able to talk to your audience, your community of amazing women.
Mhm.
and wish all of you everything that you want, not everything that other people say you should want.
What a beautiful note to go out on. I echo that. That is beautiful, and I receive. Thank you for that. Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody for watching.